So the Pels, they struggled immensely. They are getting back CJ McCollum. He just recently came back from a collapsed lung. They also are getting back Trey Murphy. So they are healthy now. They have their full squad, right? And I think there are some growing pains when you are incorporating those guys back into the lineup. I think there is some adjustment that has to happen because you're trying to figure out what lineups work. You're trying to figure out what combinations work. But for the most part, Zion Williamson has not been very good this season. He has put up numbers, but it really hasn't been good in those 2 in-season tournament games against Sacramento and Los Angeles. Against Sacramento, 10 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. Against Los Angeles, 13 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists. And it's just, look, he's already not a very good defender. He's not putting that effort in defensively. And he doesn't have a lot of counters offensively either. It's like either I'm going to barrel to the rim or I'm not going to be able to score. And against the Los Angeles Lakers, it just felt like, and the crazy thing is he took 8 shots. He only went 6 of 8. So I feel like there's like an involvement factor. Maybe it's I'm not really even sure what it is. Shaq had a really good segment. I'm not sure if you saw it.
I hadn't seen it, no.
He essentially said like, hey, a lot of this comes down to effort with Zion, and he's not rebounding the ball well. He said, he's just like me when I was a kid, and
oh wow,
I don't necessarily agree with that because Shaq was insane, like Shaq was a monster.
Right.
But the fact that he is, kind of sympathizing with him, if you will,
is interesting.
Is an interesting aspect to this. I don't know what it is with Zion that isn't working. He is not a good defender right now. He is not rebounding the ball well. And in terms of the offense, it feels like some nights he feels like he's involved. Some nights he doesn't feel like he's involved. And that's part of, trying to figure out what team works around a player like that.
Right. Yep.
Brandon Ingram had a bad game too last night. So I'm not trying to excuse or put this all on Zion.
Right.
But it does feel like that's the big part of the equation. And I think we talked about this last year. This was when they were at the top of the Western Conference, and crazy. Zion looked incredible. Like he looked absolutely insane. That's the best I've ever seen Zion Williamson in my life. And it's just like, why is that not the same now? What is what is different? What is the thing that is looking different to this team? I don't know. I wish I had the answer for you now.
Yeah, it's very tricky. I do wonder. And this is a question, this is not an observation or a statement, but my biggest question is he locked in to the current and long-term mission of the New Orleans Pelicans? Because Willie Green is someone that a lot of the players seem to really like, and CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram have continued to, express their dedication, and Herb Jones even looks, I've
better. Never
questioned that about him. And so I do sort of want, and they've got like decent bench pieces. And so I think Dyson Daniels, Trey Murphy,
like the deepest
Jordan Hawkins.
Team. Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, they've got solid pieces. And so again, I'm not shifting all the blame on Zion, but having that significant of a piece in your nucleus and kind of having that question about how locked in are you to the mission, that does sort of, I mean, those things like kind of, what's the word? Like they just bleed into other areas, and it makes things very, very challenging. And so, like you mentioned, the other top guys did not have the best performance either. And maybe that speaks to them having an off night, coming back from injuries, the Lakers just being dominant. Who knows? Like you can't necessarily pinpoint it to one thing, but with Zion, that is a huge, huge thing that they have got to figure out sooner rather than later. You can't just keep waiting on it because, injuries are a real thing. Nagging injuries are a real thing. So you never know what's going to happen around the corner. And so with Zion, I think it's something that you kind of do have to figure out sooner rather than later, because even if he is like, I like my teammates, I like Willie Green or whatever, at some point when you've got someone like Brandon Ingram and you've got someone like CJ who is struggling right now, and you mentioned the injury, but has played really well at times for this team, you've got to figure out how to put this team in the best position to be successful. And I do wonder what that means for Zion's long-term future with this team.
It's very puzzling to me because I've watched this team for a decent amount this year. And like I've had moments where I look at them and I'm like, wow, they look like they are ready to, burst through the seams. Like they are going to be a contender.
Yep.
They're so ready. You add Trey Murphy to this, you add CJ McCollum to this, you're cooking gumbo, right? Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Shout out to New Orleans.
I love it.
But by the way, side note, I would love to try gumbo. Oh my god.
You've never had gumbo? I guess I'm from the South, so
yeah,
I'm like,
I've never, never touched
when the
down
time
south.
comes.
Yeah, I know.
You will dig it.
My wife, she did her bachelorette party in New Orleans.
Oh, in New Orleans.
And so she tried gumbo, and god
Did she like it?
I was so excited. I was so jealous of all things gumbo related.
It's legit.
So look, they had a little pot cooking there in terms of like what they could potentially be, right? And ultimately, I kind of leave with a lot to be desired. It kind of feels like it's funny. It kind of feels like the Bucks, because you look at this team and they're like, man, this team should be really good. They actually, even in their record, they are pretty good. Like they're not falling off by any means, but you kind of want more, and that starts at the top. In my opinion, with this Pelicans team, with Zion, with BI. BI had a really, really great game against Sacramento. He absolutely carved up Sacramento. But just wasn't the case against LA. And to be fair, I think the Lakers are a tough matchup for the Pelicans.
Yeah.
The Pelicans rely so much on their size. Lakers can match them with that physicality and size ultimately. So I that's what I come away with. It's like it starts with Zion, and there was that quote, from the first couple of weeks of the season where Zion is like, hey, it's been an adjustment for me. We're trying something new. We're trying to play a different way. And I'm not going to lie to you, I need to figure out a way to buy in and look at this. But right now, it just doesn't seem like it's working. And how do they pivot? How do they change? I don't know.
Follow hosts at Just S. Barahini on all socials and at The Lauren Gunn on Twitter. The Objective Basketball Podcast, delivering the NBA to you like no other.